Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Bodymind Ballwork class with our guest teacher, Ellen Saltonstall. So I am so excited to have Ellen teaching us today because as many of you know, I love the ball work that she teaches, and here are my balls, my little basket, and I incorporate the work that I've learned from her into my practice every day. And I know many of you do as well. And I know that some of you also teach this work. So today we're going to be learning some new techniques for the ball work based on the requests that you've sent in. So thank you so much for sending in the areas of the body you want us to cover. We got a lot of requests, which is great. A lot of them overlap. So we'll get to the most popular requests. And we're going to get to as many as we can over the next hour or so. So just by way of introduction, Ellen Saltonstall, our guest teacher, is, as many of you know, the co-author of two books that I recommend all the time, co-author, Yoga for Arthritis and Yoga for Osteoporosis, both excellent resources. And she's also the author of Anatomy and Yoga. And her latest book, Bodymind Ballwork, that she's going to show us and talk about, is really what explains in detail much of what she'll be showing us today and more. So if you're interested in this work and want to learn more and want to follow up, you'll definitely want to get yourself a copy of that book if you don't have it already. And Ellen also offers trainings and workshops in this method, and we'll share some information on how you can find out about how to continue studying with her after the call. And really, Ellen has been teaching this ball work in general, longer than anyone else out there. So I'm really delighted that she's here with us today. So without further ado, welcome, Ellen.
Thank you, Barrie, and hello, everyone. Really great to be with you and explain and show you this wonderful work. As Barrie said, I've been practicing this ball work for over 40 years and teaching it for almost that much time because it helped me so much. In my 20s, I was a dancer, modern dancer, and I kept getting injured, as many dancers do. And I found the person who was teaching a similar type of work to this and studied with her and then kept developing it. So it's very versatile. You can work on pretty much any part of your body. And in my method, I use all different size balls, which I will show you in just a minute. And I'll also explain some of the basic principles. But the main point of it is, as you probably know, if you've tried using tennis balls, is that it can massage the tight places in your body. It can give you a relief of chronic tension points. And it can also help you prevent injuries. If you feel something's about to become an injury, you can prevent that. And you can heal injuries that you already have. So all of these soft tissue effects are the main, gift that we have from the balls. And of course, you can do it anytime by yourself, and pretty much anywhere. So it helps to relieve the tension by contacting these receptors that we have in our soft tissue called Ruffini receptors. And what they do is when those receptors have slow, steady pressure, especially with a little bit of an angle to the pressure, like a little shear, they tell the muscle and the fascia and then the whole nervous system to go towards relaxation. So this is really physiologically how it works. And as we have that relaxation effect, it can affect both our mind and our body, of course. So it can relieve the pain that we have from an injury or a tight spot, but it can also produce a really nice feeling of peacefulness. So I'll tell you the four principles, and then I'll start right away demonstrating the next technique after I show you the actual balls. So the principles are that we start by giving ourselves permission to not be judgmental of our bodies. So, if we have pain, we're probably annoyed by the pain, but we want to start this process by just trying to feel and not create a whole story or get obsessed with the whole story of why we have a certain pain or whatever the story might be. So really allowing yourself to have awareness without judgment. That's step one. Step two is to release into gravity, and I'll show this as I demonstrate the techniques. Step three is to move really slowly and in the particular part of the body that we're focusing on, rather than moving your whole body. And then the fourth thing is to improvise and discover things about your body, to be curious, to try slightly different movements once you have the pressure of the ball in the place where you want it. So there is a set technique to each part of the body, but I encourage everybody to improvise, because usually your body will tell you where it wants the ball to be. So I'm going to show you some of the balls. Just for size reference, here's a tennis ball. Most people know that size. And this is another really common ball that you can easily get at toy stores. I call it the Pinky. And I know Barrie says she uses these every day. And they're very good. The similar size that I have to the Pinky is this. And you can see it's pretty much the same. So I'm going to demonstrate with those. And then I have a slightly larger one that's the same texture. So I find that people are different sizes and their body parts, you know, will fit better with a certain type of ball. And then we have smaller ones that we use on the feet, this kind. And even as small as this, really small. And then we go back up in size to what I call the medium ones. And then the large ones. So each part of the body, you know, will fit a certain type of ball better. So for the neck technique, you're going to use at first this large one, and then the medium-sized one at the base of the neck. So for today, I'm going to be demonstrating how slowly you move, and I'm going to be, you know, shortening the whole duration of the exercise a little bit so that we'll have time for more techniques. In general, each of the techniques in Bodymind Ballwork takes about 10 to 15 minutes. When you do the whole spine, of course, it takes a little longer, 20, 25, sometimes even 30, if you want to go all the way from your neck down to your buttocks, which is what I try to do every day. But for today, we're going to just show, I'll just show the techniques in smaller increments. And hopefully you'll get a good sense of it. So I'll demonstrate where the ball is going to go on the back of my body. The first spot is right at the top of the neck, just below the skull, and then down to the middle of the neck, and then down to the lower part of the neck. And in that third spot, you might want to switch to the smaller ball. Okay? So here I go. I come down and put the ball under the top of my neck so that my head is tilted with the chin lower and the forehead higher. And the ball is just underneath the base of my skull. There's a little indentation there that you can feel with your finger. And that's the starting place. And then, as I said, you settle. You give yourself a time, a moment, to just be there on the floor, feeling the sensation of the pressure of the ball. And right now, I feel, of course, the pressure in the back, but I also feel a correspondence in my face, in my eyes, which sometimes happens. So this place at the top of the neck is a really good place to work if you have eye strain or headaches, and also insomnia. Okay, so now I'm going to start to move, and I'm going to turn towards the camera. And I'm moving at a really slow pace, trying to remain as relaxed as I can on the ball so that the weight of my head is creating that pressure. And then when I start to feel another muscle that's coming in that's more a vertical muscle and a little bit larger, I'm going to do a little up and down motion, which you can add in at any time that you want. And then I'm going to go a little further to the side. Now I'm getting close to the bone behind my ear and the beginning of the sternocleidomastoid. So I could stay here and just let that be the extent to which I turn to the side. Or if I want to go further to the side, I can actually just roll over a little more, lean that way, turn my head a little more, and readjust the position of my head on the ball so I don't feel like it's going to slip out, that it's very well supported. And then it's good to spend some extra time over here on this side because it's often tight over here for everybody. And then I'm going to go back very slowly towards the middle again. And at any point I can repeat, you know, I can double back, do a spot again. So that's what I mean when I say improvisation. You know the basic contours of the exercise, but you do what you feel you need any given day. So now I'm going to come back to center and spend just a moment in center and then go the other direction. So I hope you're getting the idea of how slow it is. And the reason, as I said, is because it reaches a certain type of receptor in your tissues, in your skin and your fascia, that are going to signal your body to let go of tension. If you go quickly, it could have the opposite effect. So we have a New York City fire engine in the background. I don't know if you can hear it.
I was just thinking that.
What?
I was just thinking that. Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah. So now I'm back to center. And what I'm going to do is show you the middle spot, but not take as much time to do the whole thing. So here's the middle spot. My face is straight up now. And the ball, because it's fairly large, really fills in the whole contour of the back of my neck. Now, of course, if a person is much smaller than me, this ball is going to feel too big. And that's why I like to have different sizes available, because you could really do your whole neck with something more like this size.
Ellen?
So, yeah.
Can I ask a question that just came in?
Sure.
Leticia, who's joining us from Vienna, she says, when I place the ball on the top of my neck, I actually get a headache. So how can I avoid that?
Okay, 2 ways to try. One is to use a much softer ball, and the other is to start as close to that spot as you can without evoking the headache. So, as you probably know, the fascia is connected all through our body. So if you can get close to the place that's very tight and loosen it up, it will help to, to treat the place where maybe most of the tension is. And then, after a few days of that, you could probably put the ball right where you feel that is the most tight place. The other thing about headaches is, of course, you have to consider that the headache could be caused by something totally other than muscle tension or fascial tension. And so, you have to address other possibilities as the cause of your headache too. So now, this is the second spot, and instead of moving slowly to the other side, I'm just going to switch now to the smaller ball for the third spot, in which my head is tilted back now, and I can feel the pressure of the ball at the maybe 5th, 6th, and a little bit onto the 7th cervical vertebra. So here again, you can turn your head. I'll go the opposite direction this time. And you can do an up and down movement as you did before. But you can also do a sideward movement, which I hope will show a little bit in the camera. So I'm going to keep my focus going straight up, but move my neck towards the camera. Right now I've done towards the camera and then back to center. So it's like a lateral shift. And then I go away from the camera. Can you see that at all? Does it show?
Yeah, a little bit. Your hair's a little bit in the way.
Oh, does that help?
Yes.
So at the base of the neck, you can do a combination of a lateral shift and a turn. And this part of the neck is almost always stiffer than the upper parts, just because of the change of curvature and all the muscles that are supporting the weight of the head, and they connect into the shoulders. So there's a lot of strong muscles here. So it does merit some time and some work here.
And especially if you have hand and wrist problems that are related to nerve conduction all the way down the arm, this would be the most important place to work. Because that nerve bundle, the brachial plexus, comes out of your neck right here, comes out through some of the neck muscles, and goes down your arm all the way to your fingers. So now, if I turn a little to the side and lean to the side, I'm getting into the side of the vertebra and a little bit of the side of the neck muscles. So you have these muscles at the side of the neck called the scalenes, and the brachial plexus comes right down through them and then goes down the arm. So to release there can be really helpful if you have nerve-related problems in your hand or wrist. Okay, so that's the neck technique. Again, if you wish, you start with a larger ball, go to the smaller one, but you could do the whole neck with something this size. It's totally fine. All right, so now I'm going to show the technique
For the top of the shoulders, where the trapezius muscle is. So you've already worked on some of the trapezius because it goes all the way up to your head. But then it comes down, spreads out a little to attach to the shoulder blades, and then on the back body, narrows again to come in towards the spine, ending at about around the 10th or 11th thoracic vertebra. So I'm going to use these white balls, but I also wanted to show you, this is a lacrosse ball that I bought on Amazon. You can see the size comparison. Here's a tennis ball. It's about the same size as a tennis ball, but it's extremely hard. So anyone who wants that hard pressure, lacrosse balls are easy to get. But I prefer something with a little bit of give to it. So I'm going to put it at the top of my trapezius, and then we're going to go down a few more spots. So here's the top spot. The second spot would be about here, third spot about here, and the fourth spot about here. And for this technique, you want to have a block handy because it helps you to get into the very top part of the trapezius if you can get your hips up on a block. So I'm going to set it up first without the block, and then I'm going to add the block in. So I put the balls under the top of the trapezius. Can you see them? Does it show?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so in this there's a few different arm positions you can choose between. So I'll show each of them. The first one is like this, and it's contrasted to this position in which you don't feel that much pressure because the weight of the arm is not near the ball anymore. So this position does two things. It gets the weight of the arms right up on the ball, and it also brings your shoulder blades a little bit apart because your arms are out in front of you. And that makes more access for the ball into the muscles. So the first movement is to simply raise your arms slowly and lower them again. And this moves your shoulder blades, but what you'll see and feel, of course, is your arms also moving. So it's very slow and it's pretty gentle. It's a good way to start if you've never done anything with the balls on this part of your body. And then you can take your arms up overhead, and if that's a very difficult position for you, you can have a bolster or a pile of blankets back there to rest your hands on. And then the movement is side to side. Again, very slowly. And you're not going very far. It's only like an inch or two because this is a rather small area that you're working on. But you can see I'm going pretty slowly, allowing the ball to press into the tissue and send a message through those Ruffini receptors to relax the tension there. Okay, now this is what happens when you put the block in. You can choose to put the block on the flat setting. I'm going to take the middle setting. This is a little tippy for this technique. So I would recommend the middle setting for many people. Put it under my hips and then bring my arms back overhead. So several things have changed. First of all, there's more weight on the balls because of the position of my hips being up in the air. Second, my back isn't touching the floor at all. So I don't have any resistance to the movement. It's easy to move. So again, my arms are touching, of course, but my back isn't. So I'm gonna move to the side and back to center and to the other side and back to center. So you get a sense of the speed, nice and slow. And anywhere that you feel you want to stay a little longer, you just stay. Because the duration of the pressure makes a big difference. Now I'm going to come back to center and show you a different arm movement. Sometimes you have to push the balls back in if they start to sort of slip out. So this is another movement that can give you an interesting variation of the pressure, that you just slowly bring your arms down and take them back up, because that's changing the soft tissue under the ball. So this method is based on two things: making the contact in the right place with the right ball, that's number one, and then moving. So that's it in a nutshell, but how you move is really important. As you see, I'm moving very slowly, and I'm really trying not to do anything with the rest of my body. The rest of my body's quite well supported. I don't have to hold myself up. It's just, all my focus could go on where the balls are. So then I would push the balls down an inch or two, so now they're in between the two shoulder blades. And this is where the size of the ball can make a difference. For smaller people, you have to find a smaller ball, and I can show you some others. For this part, I prefer to take the block out, but some of my students like to leave the block in the entire time. So you can try different things. And now I could do a few moves of the shoulders going up and down like this. So now the balls are on the middle trapezius and the rhomboid muscles. And now that they're in between the shoulder blades, you can also try crossing your arms over your chest, which adds some weight, and then shifting side to side. And then I'm going to go down to the third spot just by rolling. So I just rolled so that the balls are, inch or 2 inches possibly further down. And my favorite is to stretch the arms up like this. So I feel a whole front body stretch from this, besides the fact of, of the massage directly into the rhomboids. And this will affect your breathing too, because it's working on the back of the lungs and the ribs and all the muscles of the ribs. Okay, and then you could spend more time than this in any spot, but I'm just going to go on to the fourth spot now and continue to move side to side. And now that it's further down, the position of my arms has a kind of a different effect there. So you can try different things, see what you like. Some people like to do it with the arms over the chest like this, because it gives more weight. Now, when I'm doing this, I would keep going down my whole spine. So I'll just do a very quick overview of what that would look like. I would just keep working my way down one spot at a time. And in each spot, I would stay and settle first, and then slowly move to one side, and slowly back to center, and slowly to the other side. And then, there might be 6, 7, 8 spots going down from here to here. And then, of course, you can work on your buttocks, which is pretty intuitive. Once you put the balls under there and you move slowly, you can figure out where you need the balls to be. So I'm going to take them out now. And I do recommend coming back to the mat after you're finished to just see what you feel, to absorb and assess and feel what changes might have happened. What I feel right now is I feel much wider in through this area in my back body. And I feel that my neck and head are very nicely connected into my chest. And those are the main things I feel. Okay, so now I'm going to show you, for a smaller person, you might want to go for this size. So these are solid. They're practice lacrosse balls that I buy from some of the sports companies. And these are hollow, but they have a good firm texture. So this size is also very good for the arm and the wrist, which we're going to do next. But for a smaller person, I have some people in my classes that are just more delicate and small than me, and they prefer this going down their shoulders and their back. So that's why it's good to have some choice about the balls you use. All right, so what I'm going to do now is show you how to work on your forearm and your hand and wrist using, at first this one, and then going for these smaller ones for the hand, okay? I'm going to bring in a simulated tabletop. Okay, this is, you'd be sitting at your tabletop. You could do it on the floor, but it's more comfortable on a table or a bench. So if your wrists are bothering you, you want to address the flexor muscles, which are on this side of the forearm, and also the extensors that are on the back side. So we'll do the flexors first. So you put your palm face down, and you can press into it with your other hand. So you can move in a longitudinal way, slowly, down the muscles. And I like to backtrack, you know, so I only work on a couple of inches at a time. I'm not trying to go really fast all the way up and down. I'm trying to stay pretty isolated in one little area and move different ways. So I can move in this elongated way, or I can do a cross friction over the muscle, which is a little bumpier. You can maybe even see the bump as I go over it. So here, you know, you can find the sore spots, but also try to find the places that aren't sore, because they deserve some attention too. And then, because I have a small table here, I'm going to move the ball down and just keep working down those flexor muscles. You can even turn your hand a little bit to get the edges of them, because you have basically 3 big ones for the wrist and then some more for the fingers. So there's a lot of different places to get to. Okay, and now let's skip down to the lower part. So here I am closer to the wrist. And the tendons of these muscles are fairly long. So at a certain point, you might realize that it's getting a little stringy and you're really on the tendons. And that's not dangerous at all, it just doesn't feel as good. Okay, so then I'm going to put it right on my wrist and give it the extra weight with my other hand and work across the wrist. And once I'm into the hand itself, you can certainly use this ball, but I prefer the smaller ones at this point because they're more specific in the way they press into the soft tissue of the hand. So I'm going to show it to you with this spiky one. So you can see I can just take it anywhere on the hand, the outside edge by the little finger, across the top of the palm, into the center of the palm, and especially into the base of the thumb. So generally, you know, if you're going to get any arthritis in your hands, it's going to start with the thumb. So that's a good place to work, to make sure the soft tissue is as pliable as possible. And then you can go down the length of each finger if you want to. And, you know, all the way down like this, in between the fingers, across the base of the fingers. Just intuitively figure out where the places are that you want to work. You can also do the hands in between with both of them at once. So you can, you know, as if you're kind of
kneading the ball, crushing the ball between your hands in the best way so that it gets into both hands at once. This is something that I often do for my thumbs, is get the base of both thumbs simultaneously. Like that. Okay, so that's the flexors and the palm. So now when you want to do the extensors, you have to turn your arm the other way, which is somewhat awkward, but you can do it, especially if you lean over a little bit. And give as much weight as you want. Perhaps it'll be enough weight just with the weight of that one arm and the leaning from the rest of your body. But if you want more weight, you just gently rest your hand over the arm. So in my experience, this part is a little more tender. You can also do this standing up against the wall. So imagine that right in front of me, where you are, there's a wall, and I'm pushing the ball into the wall. I wasn't going to demonstrate this because it just won't show. But you can picture how that would be. You're facing the wall and putting the ball right there. But for now, I'm just going to do it on this little stack of pads I have here. So this is quite tender, and that might determine which ball you use. You could use a hollow ball if the solid ball is too tight, too intense for you. So for instance, this is the hollow ball that I said some smaller people like to use on their back, and this feels very nice. This would be kind of a starter way to do it, because it's getting into the pressure, but it's not as intense as that little solid ball that I had in there for a moment. So you can go down your whole arm and just reorient, reposition the ball anytime you need to. But as always, the crucial thing is to go slowly and to give yourself the time, because repetition helps. If you go over, the sore spot once, you might have some benefit, but if you go over it 6 or 8 times, there'll be more benefit. Okay, so that's the hand and the wrist and the forearm, because as I said, all the muscles that work your fingers and your wrist go all the way up the forearm to above the elbow. So you have to work the whole forearm. Okay, so I think we'll move on now to the psoas and the abdominals, moving on down the body. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So for this one, I'm going to come partially up.
Sorry, before you go ahead, I just want to mention, if anybody on the call has any questions, just use the chat there to put your questions or comments in, and I will relay them. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so, oops, one of the balls just escaped. I'm not going to stand all the way up because you won't see very much of me. So it's going to start, the 2 balls, at the crease of your hips, right about here, where you fold when you sit down. And we're going to start with them there and move the hips slowly side to side. Then we're going to move the balls down 1 inch or 2 onto the tops of the thighs and work side to side there. Then we're going to move the balls up a little bit into the lower abdomen. So how to find that spot? You have these bones right here. It's called the ASIS. It's part of your pelvic bones, which is the kind of the top and the front of your pelvis. And you're going to be just inside that with this 3rd spot. And then from there, we can do the abdomen, okay? So I'm going to stay up like this so that I can talk better, but you can certainly do the whole technique lying down. I'm just going to be up so that my voice carries better. So I'm going to let myself settle so the weight of the body is resting. And I notice the difference, if there is one, between my left and my right. And I see, are these balls the right hardness? Sometimes they're uncomfortable to the point that you won't be able to relax. So in that case, you take a little air out of the ball because these are inflatable. And I forgot to show you the pump. So this is the kind of pump you're going to want to have if you're going to have the hollow balls in your collection. So obviously to pump them, you stick the needle in the ball having moistened the needle first, that's important, and then you pump. But let's say you want to take air out of the ball because it feels too hard. What you do is you unscrew the needle or the whole hose so that it's off the pump, and then you moisten the needle and stick it in the ball and push, and all the air comes out. So it's really easy to take air out and also easy to put air in. If you're going to use these hollow balls, you need a pump, and they're very easily available online. And I'm going to be selling all the ball sets on my website very soon. I'm preparing that page now. Okay, so I think I'll lie down now so you see this shape. Now I'm going to move side to side very slowly. So I'm moving towards you, and then back to center. And I'm moving away from you, and back to center. So that movement you could do at least, 5, 6 times. And each time you may feel different things. Because what we're doing with this work is we're developing our interoception. And that's the ability to feel things that are going on inside your body. As opposed to proprioception, which is feeling the shape of your body in space and the movements that you're doing and the force that you're using. So that's at play too. That's obviously part of what you're making use of here when you move is your proprioception. But the interoception tells you even more subtle things like feelings of heat and, localized discomfort or pain or pleasure. Okay, so that's the first spot. And then I could roll forward a little bit so the balls are about 2 inches lower on the tops of my thighs. And I settle first. And then I continue to move the same way. The hips go side to side very slowly. I think it's important to do the top of the thighs when your focus is the hip flexor muscles. First of all, you're getting to the rectus femoris, which is one of the hip flexors, the quadricep. And then the other hip flexor, the psoas, the main one, attaches just below the hip here. So you're getting as close to it as you can, perhaps. And as you know in yoga, often we're trying to get the thigh bones to move back and not push forward in our basic daily posture and our yoga poses. So this really gives you the feeling of what that is, because the balls are doing it for you.
Ellen, would this also be a good one to relax the belly?
Yes, and it's good for jet lag because it increases the pranavayu, the prana moving down. It's really great for that. So now I'm going to use my hands just because I want to stay centered for the camera, but you could roll. And I've come up now with the balls just above my pubic bone on either side. So they're inside that bone that I identified for you, the ASIS. And now it's really on my abdomen. And again, I'm going to move side to side. So this place right on the side of the inside of the bowl of the pelvis is where the psoas muscle comes the closest to the surface. It's, it's a deep, deep muscle, but it's reachable here. So if you kind of hang out on one side and then move your pelvis a little bit. See, I'm shifting to the side away from you, and then I'm moving my pelvis side to side. So, intuitively, I think you'll figure out how to adjust yourself so you can get into the psoas. And here I'm going to the other one. I'm going to my right psoas. So I'm coming towards you and then doing a little movement of my pelvis while I'm there. Okay, so then let's say you want to go into your abdomen to get, to help with constipation or just general, digestive troubles or tightness in the abdomen that is restricting your back bending poses. This is a big thing, is that people these days, do so much abdominal strengthening that sometimes the abdominal muscles are too tight to allow you to do a back bend. So I'm going to take one of the balls out and put the other one a little more in the center. So I can start to feel at first the oblique abdominals that are, like on the side of the front belly there. And then as I move into the middle, I feel the rectus abdominis, which is super tough, especially around the navel, which is where I have it right now. And, if it's very uncomfortable, you don't move faster, but you don't go back and forth as much. You just spend a shorter time, but you're still moving slowly. So now I'm just going back to the right-hand side again. And now I'm going to take my hand and move the ball to the left-hand side so I can stay centered on my sticky mat. And now it's on the left side of my lower abdomen, a little below the navel, a little off to the left. And I can feel the psoas muscle. It's tighter for me on my left side, and I can really feel it. And the reason I know I'm on the psoas at that point is that it sends a connection message down to my upper thigh and up to the place above my waist where the psoas attaches to the spine. So, if you really watch for the sensations, you can tell the difference between the different layers. The superficial layer being the rectus abdominis, and then you have the other obliques, and then you have the transversus, and then you have the organs, and then finally you have the psoas underneath all of that.
Ellen?
Yeah.
There's a question here about knee pain in this position, knee pain lying on the belly. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, so I would say, first of all, put more padding under your legs as a whole, and then put a bolster under your feet so your knees are a little bit bent. The problem with the knees is when the kneecap itself is going straight down into a hard floor, which mine is right now, but it doesn't bother me. But if it did bother you, I would put more blanket under me and I would raise my feet up. Okay. And that wouldn't do any harm to the technique you're doing with the ball. In fact, it would make it a little stronger. I mean, you could practice like this. And because this means that I'm stretching the front line of fascia by having my feet up like this, I'm getting actually a stronger effect. So you could do that if you want. Okay. So, shall we go for the feet now?
What about IT band?
Oh yeah, okay. So I see pictures of people working their IT band in this position, kind of balanced on a roller or a ball, but having to hold themselves up like this on one arm, which I don't like. So what I would suggest is that you have some kind of padding. It could be, these rubber pads that I have in my studio, or it could be something softer, like a couple of pillows even. But I'm going to use this because this is what I have here. And then the ball that you use is going to be roughly this size. And then once you get familiar with it and you can, tolerate more pressure or you want more pressure, you could move down to the solid ball. But I would recommend starting with the hollow ball. Now, the place you're trying to get to is on the side of your hip and the side of your thigh. The iliotibial band goes from the top of your pelvis, where I'm touching my bones here, down across this other bony place that I'm touching here called the greater trochanter of your femur. You don't want to put the ball right there because there's a lot of bursa and it can get very irritated. So we're going to find one spot for the ball above the greater trochanter and then several spots down the side of the thigh, okay? So I lie down on the pads. So this way you see my shoulder has a space between these two pads and my head has some support. If I didn't have anything under me, my shoulder would be completely crushed and I wouldn't be so happy in my shoulder while I worked on my hip. So now I'm going to put the ball underneath that side of the pelvis between the top bone of the pelvis and the greater trochanter. And this is interesting for me because I had a hip replacement about 18 months ago, and it's right on the scar, but it feels fine. So you can stack your legs like this, or you can have one leg a little bit to the back so that you have some movement available to you. So I'm going back and back to neutral and a little bit forward with my pelvis. And you can get more towards the buttocks if you lean back a little bit, or more towards the front part of that
iliotibial band, which I'm going to do slowly now, by bringing the other leg in front like this. So now I'm right on a little muscle called the tensor fasciolata, which is an important hip support muscle. And you can just feel the difference between that and the iliotibial tract itself, which is thicker tissue. So you just spend some time moving back and forth. And then once in a while, just totally stop and relax, because even now, with me doing this and talking to you, I can feel that my neck is tightening up, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to stop moving and take a breath and just let the ball do the pressure while I rest. And then I can start moving again. So I encourage you to really be connected to the rest of your body as well as where you're working with the ball, so that you don't create one problem while you're solving another one. Okay, now I'm going to move the ball with my hand down below that greater trochanter, and then see how much pressure I want, because if I really rolled completely onto my side, it's quite a bit of pressure. So I can be like this, a little bit obliquely lying, and then I can move slightly forward and back with my pelvis. And I have the stability with this other foot on the floor. So the ball is moving just, about 2 or 3 inches along the iliotibial band. And it's going along the direction of the fibers right now as I move this way. See, I'm extending my knee out and then pulling my hips back. Now I could get a variation in that movement if I pick up my foot and move the leg towards my head or towards my feet, and that means that the ball is crisscrossing over the fibers of the iliotibial band, cross-frictioning. So that's a little more intense. You can try that. And then you would move the ball down a little bit more. And here, I feel I can tolerate a little more pressure, so I'll put the other leg on top and move my hips back and forth slowly. And then try a little bit of the thigh and the entire leg moving. And then you just keep going towards your knee, and it's safe to go all the way to the knee. So here, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You probably have 5 or even 6 spots, depending on how long a thigh bone you have. And it feels quite different as you go down, because not only are you working on the iliotibial band, which is on the surface, but the quadricep just underneath it, the lateral quadricep, can be super tight, especially if you do a lot of sports or especially running. That quadricep can be so tight. You can also try extending your leg, and that makes it a little easier to turn now that you're down on the lower part of the leg. So I'm turning my leg to allow the ball to really cover the entire width of the iliotibial band. So some parts are going to be way more tender than others. Now I'll skip down to the place just at the side of the knee. So the iliotibial band attaches below the knee, and you can work down that far, but the further down you get, the less weight you have, because obviously the leg is heavier at the top. So here's the place where I would say just improvise, and always check yourself to see if you're relatively comfortable in the rest of your body, and if you're not, make some kind of change so that you are more comfortable. So right now, I'm going to rest for a minute with my legs stacked, and I get a very good pressure to that part of the ITB, and I can even do a small movement here with both legs going forward and back. So what you're doing is giving pressure to the tissue with a little bit of movement that has a direction to it, and that encourages the tissue to hydrate itself, for more water that's inside your body anyway to circulate more fully through the tissue. And when it has that water that it really needs, it's softer and more pliable and more resilient. Okay, so that's that one.
So now, shall we go to the foot? What do you think?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So I'll straighten out the mat again here. And as I said, for a beginner, when you're not used to it, you would probably want to use something about this size. This one's hollow, this one's solid. And then you would work up to using something smaller and harder. So I have two different ways I approach the foot. One is kind of a shorter sequence, and the other is a longer sequence. So I'll show you. The shorter sequence, we're going to start by going across this band at the base of the toes. Is it showing on the camera right here?
Yes.
Good. And then we're going to go just behind that towards the heel to another band here. And then to the band right in front of the heel. So what I'll do is show you this particular pathway with one foot, and then I'll sit down again and explain the other pathway. Okay? Because they're both good. They're just, you know, it sort of depends how much time you have, whether you do the short one or the long one. Okay, so you won't be able to see my head, but I'll still be talking. So I'm going to put my foot over the ball in such a way that my heel is on the floor, and the base of my toes is where the ball is, and then the toes curl naturally over the ball. Is this showing okay? Or I could take off my socks.
Yeah, I was actually wondering, do you recommend doing it with socks or without, or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter, but just so you can see better where I am on my foot, I'll take my sock off. Okay, so here I'm curling over the toes. I'll do it sideways like this. And I'm going to move very slowly to one side. So as I tip my foot toward the big toe, the ball goes toward my little toe. And here's the important part. I really think it's important to have your heel on the floor and pivot over your heel rather than have your whole foot off the floor, because you get going too fast and you don't have enough stability or weight into the ball. So I really encourage you to have your heel on the floor most of the time, except when you're trying to work on the heel with the ball, which I'll show you too. So here I am towards my little toe, and then I'm going towards the middle, and I can just zigzag a little bit. And now here I am going towards the big toe, which is really the joint at the base of the big toe. And that's the place where people get bunions, so it's a good place to work because it'll keep the joint as pliable as possible. And often people's feet get narrow from the pressure of their shoes at this part of the foot, the toe end of the foot. So this is giving you some nice width. Now, I'm going to move the ball behind the place where the callus is, so it's on the somewhat softer part of the sole of the foot. And this is that second row. I'm going to slowly move to each side. And then I'm going to go to the row just in front of the heel. And you can start in the middle if you wish, or at either side, doesn't really matter. And here I am moving towards the outer foot. And then into the middle. Now here you'll probably feel the plantar fascia because it gets a little thicker as it comes back to attach into the front of the heel bone. So this place where I am right now in the center, just in front of the heel, is quite tender for most people. But it's certainly fine to work on. And then I'm going to turn a little so you can see the ball now. This is another really important place to get to because this is the bony area that's supposed to lift up if we have an arch in the foot, a medial longitudinal arch. So for people with flat feet, this is a good place to work because it can retrain the bones to lift up, and then of course you have to add some muscle strengthening exercises to help sustain that. And then I encourage people to just double back and do any spot again if they want to. Okay, so that's the short version. And then I always have people stand on 2 feet, one of which has had the ball work and the other hasn't, and just feel the difference. So right now for me, I feel wider through that left foot, and definitely more articulate. Like I know where the different parts of the foot are touching the floor, and I have choice about where I put my weight. I have much more, sensory connection to the foot, and therefore I'll be more skillful in the way I use my foot. Okay, so now I'm going to take my other sock off and show you the pathway for the more detailed way of working the foot if you have time to do that. So you would start at the center of the part where the base of the toes have a joint with the metatarsal bones. And then you're going to slowly go down the center line and actually onto the heel and a little bit around the heel. And then up the outside edge. And this is a really important place right here. And I'm going to be standing up. I'm just showing you the pathway. So this isn't the actual technique. This is just showing you the pathway. And then we're going to go up all the way to the toes and go across the toes themselves, back around to the big toe side and down the inner arch. And that really covers the foot pretty thoroughly. So shall I do it in real time? Do we have time for that?
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes.
Good, perfect. Okay, so here I am in the middle place. The ball's right about here. I don't know, you probably can't really see it. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other ball, which is slowly tip from side to side, keeping my heel down on the floor. And then I'm going to go slightly faster than I would otherwise, just so that we get through the whole foot. So here I am with the ball just behind the joints, and the ball's going to go down the center of the metatarsal area. And as always, I have my heel on the floor, and I'm just pivoting, rolling a little bit, not trying to cover a lot of area. Each spot is fairly specific. You just make a sequence of spots so you eventually cover the whole sole of the foot. Now here I am getting back towards that place where the plantar fascia is attaching. And this ball is a lot harder and smaller than the other one, so it's fairly painful, and I can put more weight on my other foot to have it be a little gentler. Then I'm going to put my toes on the floor so that I'm supporting myself with the toes instead of the heel while I take the ball across the heel slowly. Okay, now I'm going to turn so you can see the ball's going to go on the outside edge. And this is a pretty sensitive area, just in front of the heel on the little toe side. It's the reflex for the knee and the hip. So any knee or hip problems, this is a really good place to work. And you just very slowly progress forward towards your toe, working each spot carefully. So right here, I happen to feel a sensation connecting up into my ankle, which makes sense because that's where the peroneal muscle is attached. And then now I can put my heel on the floor again and work towards the little toe. And here I am at the base of the little toe. And now I'm going to go under the two toes, the fourth and the fifth toe together. And the movement is really small, but you will feel it in the connection joint, the joint at the base of the toe where it connects into the metatarsals. And that's really important place to keep flexible for the sake of our balance. Now I'm under the third and the fourth toe. And just slowly moving side to side without really changing the degree of pressure, keeping the pressure pretty consistent as I just roll my foot in and out. And then here's the second and the third toe together. And here's the first and the second toe together. And then I like to give the big toe just a moment on its own. And as you move your foot in this way over the ball, you can feel the connection all the way through the metatarsal, the tarsals, and up into your ankle. The big toe is very crucial for our balance and our propulsion when we're walking. So it does a lot of work, maybe below our daily awareness. Okay, now I'll turn this way so you can see the ball coming down the inner edge. So here it is under the big toe joint, which could be swollen from having a bunion. And then we're going to go down the inner edge here. And the reason I do this part last is that it's sometimes very sensitive. So if it's sensitive, you always have the option to put more of your weight on your other foot, which I just did. And you just roll across. This is the reflex for the spine. So it may correspond to some soreness that you have in your spine, or tightness or injury or difficulty of some sort. That part of the sole of the arch of the foot might be sore. So back here at the very lowest part before you get to the heel corresponds to the lower back, which is such an important place to maintain resilience, maintain both strength and flexibility. And then I like to say, just go back to any place that intuitively you want to revisit before you stop. And then, again, stand on 2 feet with your eyes closed and feel the effects. So now I feel both feet very sensitive and very spread out, but this right one, my right foot being more recently worked on, it's especially sensitive and especially well connected into the floor. So I feel like I could balance on it fairly easily, and it just feels very much alive. Okay, so there we are. I'll show you now.
Time for 2 more questions.
Sure. Okay, let me just show the book. This is the cover.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah. So this book is so many years in the making because I wrote versions of it over the years. And it includes all the instructions for all the methods, all the techniques, with photographs and drawings where you can't see the ball in the photograph. I have a drawing as well. But then it has a lot of text about the psychological and physiological components of the work, so that you can, read it from that point of view, or you can just read it as an instructional book, your choice. And ideally, you'll be interested in both.
Great, great. Yeah, so we'll put a link to that also. Is Amazon the best place for people to get it, or from your website directly? Amazon?
Yeah, no, I'm not selling the book from my website right now. I'm going to focus on selling the balls because the book is so available on Amazon. I don't need to sell it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and we did get, thank you for putting together the names of the different ball manufacturers in different countries also. So
yeah.
We'll put links to that.
Yeah, I'll just say that the one in Canada, only has the Togu balls, which are excellent. They're really my favorite of all the balls I have. I didn't even show them to you here, but that's what they have. But maybe some of you in Canada will be able to buy from Amazon and from some of the other companies that I listed there.
Yeah, okay, good. So we'll put the links up. So 2 questions. One is, any tips for tissue around the knee, pain on top of the kneecap? Do you have an exercise for that?
Pain on top of the kneecap. So then you would need to work both your lower leg and your upper leg from the front side. So you'd be lying flat on your stomach for this thigh. So you know the one I demonstrated with these large balls lying on your stomach. You would want to use smaller balls because once you get down to the knee, the big balls are just too tippy. You're going to fall off too easily. So you can use something in the middle range like this, and you can go all the way down the thigh. So I'll do a quick demo. When I'm lying flat face down working on the thigh, I prefer to have a small amount of padding under my torso because it reduces the amount of lower back arch that's caused by the balls. So you could do that if you want. And then you put the ball underneath the quadriceps. And it is fairly tippy because you can see I'm already rolling a lot. So what I usually do is I move one leg at a time. So I'll take one leg up and 1 foot up so the knee's bent, and then I'll roll along one of the legs because to do both at once is very challenging. So this is releasing the muscles that go across the kneecap, the quadriceps. So if you have kneecap pain, that would be something to address.
Okay, and then let me show you the lower leg. For that one, I would go back to the smaller size. Go back to this size and put them underneath the front of your legs on either side of the shin bone. So they're on the outer part of the shin because the bone is fairly prominent here and you don't want to, I mean, I don't think it'd be dangerous to go in the bone, but it wouldn't be very satisfying. So I'll show you where the ball is on my leg. It's right here. So here's the bone and it's just on the side, which is the tibialis anterior muscle. And you can, if you're able to sit this way, you can do it fully sitting down. If that's tricky for you, you can come up and have a little bit less flexion of the knee. But this is a really good one if you have knee trouble or ankle trouble.
Great.
And I sometimes sit this way when I'm teaching because it's a good one for me to do every day.
Yeah, great. One last question is, what can tennis balls be used for? Well, the tennis balls, just because those are the most easily, ones
they're
that
available. They're very hard when they're new, and they get softer and softer and softer. And they have this slippery surface. They have a fabric surface, which means that they're not going to stay put on your body quite as well. But you can use them for the whole spine, the trapezius, the arms, the back of the calves. You can use them for a lot of places in which this would be the other choice. So they're pretty similar in size.
Right.
And like you said, they're available. They're just not as friendly. This one I have is new and it's really hard. It's much harder than this. Can you see I can squeeze this a little bit? I really can't squeeze the tennis ball much at all. So
well, it doesn't work for me to do it on the spine. Like they just break in half.
Oh, that's another problem.
For my weight.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, when you have a solid ball, you can count on it pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's one more question. Baker's cyst. Would it be dangerous to use a ball behind the knee for a Baker's cyst?
I would be cautious. Yeah, I don't know about working directly on a cyst. I would be cautious about that. I would tend to work on the areas around the cyst, like work on your hamstrings and work on your gastrocnemius, the back of the calf. Especially if it's kind of a new injury. If it's a really old chronic injury, then I would try it.
Okay.
On the back of the knee using this size.
Okay. Okay, great. Excellent. Wow, we got to so much today.
Yeah,
every area of the body. That's great. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Yeah.
You want to come back and do the side of the body?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a whole series that's so wonderful for the side of the body.
Yeah.
TB, that's the main one. But, there's wonderful things for the ribs and yeah.
Great. And it's all in the book also. So
yes,
I'm sure it's very clear.
And it's fun I encourage everybody who's doing this to improvise because, that's where you find what you need for your own body.
I really love that because I think we, especially when we're really into asana, we get really into ideas of right and wrong and what we should be doing and what's optimal. And so just having the permission first of all, to give ourselves time.
Yes.
Really give enough time. And then the permission to just improvise and see what feels good and that there's no wrong way to do it if we can release into it.
Yeah, I often get the question, is there any place I shouldn't put the ball? And I say, your intuition will tell you. You don't put it on your eyeballs. You don't put it on the front of your throat. And then the other thing that maybe not intuitive is not to put it on your greater trochanter bone, but I said that earlier, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Good. Well, thank you so much for being here. This is fantastic. So we're going to put all those links up and it was a great session. And I'm sure we're gonna continue to practice with this. We'll probably be in touch with you for questions.
Sure, yeah. If you have questions, we can do it as a group or any individuals. If you want to write to me, just do it on my website. That's totally fine.
Great, great. And I know that already some of our members have done the training with you to actually teach this work. So that's you're going to be coming up with your schedule for this year and next year. So that's great. So we'll share all that information.
Yeah. So what I do with the training, I'll just say some general things about it, is that I have
a 3-day curriculum, which I'm considering trying to squash into 2 days, but it really should take 3 days, to do all the methods, to do all the techniques, so that the person who may be becoming a teacher at least has done everything, you know, and felt it in their own body. And then we have a separate teacher training couple of days where we talk more about the actual skill of teaching and, you know, other aspects of it. So usually I do that all at once, but for people who are coming from a distance, but I may do it in more a weekend format from now on. So I'm just considering how to structure it so that I can get all the material to the people who want to hear it.
Right.
So those listening, if you are interested in training with me and you don't live close to New York, please write to me so that I can start to consider that in my planning.
Great. Awesome.
Good.
All right. So
All right.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
See you soon. Bye.